This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Welcome to the From Pain to Purpose radio show. I'm your host, Eva Fulton. In this show, we explore the incredible journeys of resilience, healing, and transformation. In each episode, we will sit down with individuals who have faced unimaginable struggles and turned their pain into power, heartbreak into hope, and their challenges into meaningful change and finding new purpose in life. Through candid conversations and inspiring stories, we will uncover how pain, whether emotional, physical, mental, or spiritual, can be the catalyst for profound growth and a deeper sense of purpose. So if you are looking for motivation, insight, and real stories of triumph over adversity, you're in the right place. Let's get started on this journey from pain to purpose. Let's give veterans a voice through Military Broadcast Talk. Hey, welcome everybody. This is the From Pain to Purpose radio show. I am your host, Eva Fulton, and this is Saturday, January 31st, 2026, year of our Lord. I had to do a quick check. This is where, there's already a whole month of 2026 has flown by, headed to a shutdown again, I guess. And for me and for a lot of other people, that really kind of matters. We're federal employees in our day jobs, but I volunteer doing this as a radio show host, something that I really enjoy doing. And that's because I meet some really interesting people. Sometimes I only get to meet them online. Sometimes I get to meet them in person. And I'm really excited to have on two non-veterans, but still in the professional space of things. But I really enjoy having guests on like this because I'm connecting as a mother. I'm connecting, on a very human level. And it just so happens that I happen to be a veteran and neither of them are. But because we go through life is lifing, we still, even as a parent who happens to be a veteran, I still, just like you do, audience, you need to know some of those tools and experiences that we can borrow, because maybe this is all about us sharing and learning, based upon the 4 pillars of pain that I use. The physical, which shows up usually the most obvious, goes into the mental, emotional. Those are really kind of tied together. And then, of course, the spiritual. And when one of those legs of the chair, as I call it, when one of those legs starts getting a little rocky, then we have to figure out what to do. The hard part about that is that identifying it in and of ourselves is one thing. But how do we help our kids? And, I have 4 children. All are adults now, but that doesn't mean that they each have not had some of their own issues. I mean, my kids have experienced the death of both of their fathers, right? I had 2 kids with one dad, 2 kids with a dad, and both passed away in 2014 and 2015. So I've had to manage this hat of who I am, both as a parent, as a veteran, as ex-spouse and am I whenever those check off happens, are you single? Are you a widow? Are you divorced? And I'm kind of like, yes, yes. And balancing some of those things gets tricky. The hard part is, how do I help somebody else that's in my general sphere of things? So in walks Sara. She had posted something on LinkedIn about helping authors, and I'm like, ooh, let me raise my hand. But I think this is really, this is that exchange, people gardening thing that we do, that we have these opportunities that help somebody else tell their story, that can help somebody else with their story. So joining us today is Sara Schaffer. She is a coach. Oops, I just messed my notes up. She's a coach, best-selling author, an award-winning speaker. But in this interview, she's simply a mom. And her husband, Myron, they have two daughters, Kira and Vivian. After years of mental health struggles and a crisis season in 2024, they chose residential counseling for Kira at Heartlight Ministries in Northeast Texas, 1,000 miles from their home in Colorado. Sara is here to join the reality of that decision, what the system of care felt like, and why she now believes there is real practical hope for families walking a similar road. Kira on the other side, Kira Schaffer was diagnosed with ADHD, anxiety, and depression at age 6. After years of escalating mental health challenges, including 6 hospitalizations for depression and suicidal ideation from ages 12 to 17, she entered residential counseling at Heartlight Ministries in November 2024. She returned home to Colorado in October 2025, healthy and hopeful. Today, she's 18, pursuing her goal of becoming a real estate agent and encouraging others who feel trapped by mental illness. And here are my guests.
The interview of the week is brought to you by Jersey Mike's, a sub above.
Hey, ladies, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Now that we have this whole connection issue fixed. So backstory, guys, to catch you on, we didn't get to do our normal little kind of like back and forth conversation before the show started, because I got a new router today here in Dad's old house. Went to the store, we got the new router. I just got off of the phone with IT like 5 minutes before I connected on. And I thought everything was looking fine, but I couldn't see me. Y'all couldn't hear me. And I thought, man, we're going to be in the 21st century with internet. And I'm connected with my phone, guys. I'm connected to the internet with my cell phone. So anyhow, what an intro. Sounds like this has been a challenge over the years. Where do you want to start? Who wants to start? Kira or Sara? Where do you want to start?
You got that.
You got this.
Apparently, I've got this.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. When Kira was young, when she was little, she would have rages almost every day from about 2 until about 6. And finally, at age 6, we were able to have her diagnosed, like you said, with ADHD, anxiety, depression. And we were able to put her on, try some medications, and they just slowed her down, calmed her down. And it was super helpful. It was super great to be able to do that for her. And but that wasn't the end. That was just sort of the beginning of our journey right there.
Yeah. So it wasn't a diet thing. It wasn't. I'm kind of going through the mental checkbox of things.
Right.
It wasn't dyes, right? I mean,
yeah, it wasn't dyes. It wasn't just sugar. I mean, none of that like took care of the real problem. And so,
okay.
So we went the pharmaceutical route, I guess you could say, and that definitely helped. And Kira really comes by what she deals with, honestly, because I also have struggled with extremely severe depression and my own crashes several times throughout my life. And so, as a hereditary thing, it's definitely something that we think is connected between
Oh,
the
I
two of us.
see.
Mm-hmm.
So in some ways that helps, but it doesn't necessarily give you the answers that you're looking for either.
Right. Yeah.
So I think, like I said, I've had 4 kids. The hard part would be just even managing the school side of things.
Oh my gosh,
Right?
yes.
Yes. So Kira, what was your experience on your side with the school side?
I went to a private school, a private Christian school, and so the academics were really hammered into us, and they had a somewhat difficult curriculum for things, and so that on top of mental health was not
Conducive.
fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was not good.
No grace there. I hate saying it, but there was no grace in a place where maybe you should have had grace.
Yeah, they were good about it though. Out of all places I could have been, it was probably the best situation, but it was still difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it was better than what you would have gotten in the public school system?
Absolutely.
I think the
Yeah.
public schools wouldn't have had the pressure, the academic pressure. But what was great about where she was is they saw her as a person. So when she would
Right.
miss assignments or something like that, they looked at her as a person first, rather than
Okay.
just looking in the grade book and saying, oh, these things are missing. So they had grace on that side once they knew her struggle.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, that sounds good then.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still all the pressure to perform
Yeah.
from the school,
But
especially in high school.
I know when my kids, especially my youngest two, because my second husband was going through his illness, talking with the school people was one of the really critical things that I think helped give my kids the grace on the grieving side.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that you're coming from a different angle on the mental health side, but even grieving and pre-grieving, knowing that their dad was ill, was important for me to have a conversation with the counselors and at least the vice principal and the principal, so that, hey, as we're navigating these things, we're on the same page about how to handle situations.
Mm-hmm.
Were there, what's the term, like an outburst? Did you have outbursts and stuff like that?
Not necessarily in the like rage, uncontrollable way. It was more like there would be days when I couldn't stop crying, or I would just fall asleep in all of my classes, or I would have really bad panic attacks. So those were more of the outbursts that I had. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was is that the difficulty in managing it? I mean, I'm using the word manage, but I'm using that term loosely.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the right word is, but also the peer reactions that you would get.
Mm-hmm.
How did you navigate that?
I mean, I've definitely had good friends throughout all 4 years of high school. I've had a pretty solid group of people. And then I've also obviously had those negative responses as well to it. But my line of thinking with it is more these people who have stuck with me and who have been my friends truly know, like, me in this situation and care about me. And people who are from the outside just kind of judging, it's like they don't know everything.
Mm-hmm.
Did COVID impact you? Because I think I can see in my youngest two, is that they were, my son graduated high school in 2020,
Mm-hmm.
but he didn't get the normal, all the senior year stuff. It was all during COVID, and ended up, we sat in my truck watching the graduation as he was on the Texas Motor Speedway He was actually on the racetrack. So it was kind of cool story to tell. He got to walk across the finish line at Texas Motor Speedway. That was the graduation.
Nice.
But we were watching it on the big screen, but it still was not the same as what everybody else had. Didn't have the, senior dance and that kind of stuff. So but they also, I think, kind of ended up withdrawing a bit. So he didn't do the whole dating thing. My daughter didn't really get to do too much either. So how did that affect you in that regard?
I was in 7th grade, the end of 7th grade when COVID hit. And middle school was not a super fun experience. Being a girl in 7th grade, I don't think is ever fun for anybody. And it's not fun. But it was, at the end of my 7th grade year, and I was getting pretty severely bullied in middle school. And it was still really hard because when we had to isolate and separate from everybody, it was still really difficult because I strive off of social connection, even though the social connection I was having was really negative with people.
Yeah.
So is that still a challenge for you today?
No, I tend to be pretty connected with my friends and everything, and I have a good group of people around me, and I love going out and doing things with my friends.
But I also see you a lot more comfortable being alone.
Yeah.
And being able to do things.
Yeah.
But I almost think in some ways COVID was a blessing at the moment because it got her out of that day-to-day bullying that she was experiencing.
Right.
But then the next year, in the fall of 2020, they started doing that hybrid of you're in a cohort, and if somebody in your cohort gets COVID, then your cohort is staying home, and and now doing online school. And that's where you kind of fell off the rails, when it was this back and forth. And so you were there and then you were home, and it just kind of switched up, and that was tough for you. Yeah.
Did y'all, I'm kind of going backwards. Remember, there was an instance, my daughter was in elementary school, and this was right after Facebook. It was just getting started, but she had a teacher that was trying to get this school version of a social media instilled, in those and all these. Your base is already headed the direction that I was, the experience we had. My daughter was getting bullied online by these two boys in her class, and the teacher was supposedly monitoring all of these comments. And obviously she was not. So my daughter was crying. I ended up going to the school board meeting. I got signed up, and my husband was there. They were there. And I was like, this is how my daughter is being treated. These kids, this teacher needs to be teaching the core classes and not try to instill some kind of social media. What are we paying you guys to do?
Right.
And I think that's I've been a proponent of the phones don't need to be in the classes. Teach the kids what they're there for. I'm not trying to hijack what we're here to talk about, but in some ways it really does impact your mental health. If you aren't doing the things that you're supposed to be doing because you're being distracted by the bullying that doesn't need to be there to begin with.
Yeah.
So, Sarah, how did you address that or were you able to address it with the teachers?
We didn't really realize how extensive the bullying was until she was done with the school, literally on the last day of 8th grade. And I'm not sure exactly why, because it's not like we weren't talking all the time with Kira and that kind of thing. But what we saw on our side was that she was, that was the season when she started self-harming. That was the season when she was starting to get severely depressed That was when she would take an assignment that she had finished, but she didn't feel like it was perfect and would throw it in the garbage instead of turn it in. And no, I mean, it's just, I'm not trying to like tell stories on you, except to say that, you know, it was just all the, what we saw were just kind of these really depressed, erratic behaviors from her. And we didn't know that there was this quiet bullying going on.
The root cause. You didn't know the root cause of it.
Right. We just knew that she was, you know, at times even saying that she wanted to hurt herself, that she was talking about not wanting to be there, not wanting to live anymore. We did not realize that people were whispering to her, nobody wants you here. Nobody cares about you. You shouldn't be here. We didn't realize. And that, as a mom, I mean, you can imagine like finding that out after the fact and having not stood up for her. Yeah, I had a lot of guilt about that. And we were just doing the best we knew to do with each situation that we had. Yeah.
So how did you identify, or what was the critical point that it took for you to go get the help that you needed?
Well, for that experience, we were at a different school for 7th and 8th grade. And by the end, even by the middle of 8th grade, we actually applied to go to a different school midway through 8th grade. And that interview with the school did not go well.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And it was this school where she eventually went to high school, and and so we just said, okay, but they invited her. They said, we're not accepting her into 8th grade, but we invite her to apply for high school. And we said, well, how can we increase the chances of her being accepted for high school? And so they said, increase your grades, like get better grades, because she was failing several classes. And then we started having a tutor come and help her one-to-one. That was another huge turning point, where this tutor came, got her caught up in all the work she was late on. And she started realizing, oh, I'm smart, because this tutor was a former special ed teacher from one of the local school districts. And she knew how to bring out Kira's brilliance, because Kira's very bright. But she, like, you're twice exceptional, and some of the things were just hard for her to do. So Kira started realizing, oh my gosh, maybe I'm smart. Yeah. And so that, I think, was part of the turning point for you. And then you started having the goal of getting into this other high school, so you weren't going to school with these kids after that year. And so some of those things made a turnaround, but it was a slow try and try again kind of process, for sure.
Yeah. It was getting the fresh start is what would help.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you had somebody that was sowing seeds of faith and hope in you, reassurances that, yeah, you were smart. You just had to start believing you were smart.
Yeah.
Were the other kids putting you down? Is that how they were doing that?
Yeah. They would just talk badly about me.
I think that's the hard part growing up, because I've had people tell me stuff, even as adults, it happens. That, it's not hard to be able to see some of the same high school mentality, that they don't mature, right? Some people get stuck in the small town. I think was one of the things that probably drove me to going in the Army, was that I got to get out of the small town. Nothing against probably the town that it's become, but it's just, I knew there was more out there for me than staying stuck where I was. And, I had a mother that thought that, doing C's were okay. I was a high overachiever kind of person. I knew there was more world out there than, small town Texas.
True.
Yeah.
So now, what has been, do you think, the hardest part about navigating some of these challenges now?
Post Heartlight post-treatment facility, I guess.
Yep.
It can still be difficult to regulate my emotions because I think pretty emotionally. Like when I'm in my feelings about things, it's really hard for me to see the logic outside of it. And so when I'm stuck in my feelings in that sense, it's difficult to kind of bring myself back into reality. And I've learned how to do it better. I've gained more skills on how to do that, but it's always going to be difficult.
Mhm. Yeah.
Is that also a time where you have to learn different communication skills to talk to your mom or to your dad, to others?
Yeah, definitely. It was a time where I learned how to utilize my resources in that sense. I would only have one 30-minute phone call a week with them, and I would tell them everything that was going on as fast as I could in those 30 minutes so I could get as much out there as I could because they were my safe space in this program for the whole time. So there were a few staff here and there who definitely were also that safe space for me. But it definitely increased the fact that I actually had to communicate how I was feeling so I could progress throughout the program.
Right. I would think that for your age, that would be hard to know who you can trust and who you can't trust.
Yeah.
And understanding that there's a difference in that. Just
Mhm.
because somebody's there doesn't mean that you can tell them everything.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how did that make you feel, Sarah?
It was just, I mean, the whole situation of sending her to Heartlight was challenging. But we were obviously grateful that she was communicating with us. And we also had, on the parent side, we had a 30-minute call every week with Kira. And then we had a 30-minute call every other week with her counselor. And so we would get updates. And it was really helpful. It was helpful for us to hear that third person perspective outside of our family of how Kira was doing, but yet somebody who really cared for her. And so I think Kira at first, I mean, I guess she went in thinking, I'm just going to perform my way through this, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Check the boxes.
Yeah.
And get out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Check the boxes and get out of the program. That's not really how that works.
No.
Yeah.
But I think that's how we've been wired to think that
Mhm.
everything is transactional. We're not
Mhm.
supposed to just own that part of the change.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's true. It's true.
I mean, it's kind of like going on a diet. It took years to put on the weight. It takes some years maybe to take it off. It doesn't,
Mhm.
we don't get rewired automatically.
Mm.
Right.
And that's the part I think is also actually translates back to the military side of things.
Mhm.
For a lot of us as veterans who served in war, and in some ways you've gone through your own little spiritual war, right? Emotional, mental, spiritual war that probably
Absolutely.
impacted you physically as well. That there is a type of moral injury that happens, but you have to go through that recovery and healing side to get back to who your new person is, because we we battled some things, right? Like
Mhm.
I'm pointing to my screen. We went through some warfare.
Yeah.
And we did some growing, but we're coming out different people that are certainly influenced by that side of things.
Mhm.
And so now you have to re-identify. I think I was listening to part of Tony Robbins yesterday, who was talking about the same thing, identifying who yourself is. We're going to, that's a daily challenge sometimes. Well, who am I today?
Mhm.
And I've talked about it before with, spoon theory spoons. You could probably apply spoon theory as well. how many spoons do I feel like I can handle emotionally today? You know, is it 10 or maybe is it 20? So it's not a physical thing. It's really kind of an emotional and a mental thing that you got to know how many spoons you're dealing with to be able to talk to your mom and say, hey, I've just got 10 spoons today, mom.
Mhm.
And that can help you communicate in a simple way that I can't do as much. Let's give it a whirl tomorrow and maybe I'll wake up with 20 spoons. And you can do some, you know, something a little bit more outrageous and go to Six Flags or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, and I think for us with like all the things that we're talking about when you're talking about like elementary school and middle school and then high school and how we had different schools that we were trying in this whole process. And we had this really rough experience in middle school. And I say we because it was really rough in middle school for all of us. But then, so then we go to this private high school thinking, oh, this will be better. And you were still there. And the things in you were still not really being healed. And that, you know, so that those problems maybe were better because it was a more positive environment overall. And there wasn't the bullying, but some of those internal things that were broken were still broken. And so by senior year, things were still broken. And yeah, it just became a crisis, and it just, it was a matter of like actually getting healing and really learning how to deal with that and cope with that, rather than just like, oh, well, different battlefield, but I'm still carrying all the same scars and all the same reaction. Yeah.
It makes sense. Totally. I think what I'm hearing is that you didn't allow yourselves to stay stuck and thinking you could only do the public schools, right?
Yeah.
And I've done research before because my youngest son had wanted to do a Catholic school in high school. And they have scholarships out there, you know. So I know that they're expensive, you know, to go to those private schools. I'm plugging that because people may think that public school is the only option, but there are other school options out there. You just have to be assertive enough to ask and see if you apply. Some of them are income based. They have scholarships. They want people to be able to come in.
Right.
So how did you guys find Heartlight then?
Well, when our girls were younger, like before, when
I'm turning the
Kira
light on.
was okay. When Kira and her younger sister were in elementary school, upper elementary school, Myron and I found an online course called Tough Guys and Drama Queens. And it was by this gentleman named Mark Gregston. And it was just a course that he and I did on our own week by week. We'd watch the 10-minute videos and whatever. And this guy, Mark Gregston, had some of these really kind of different ideas about parenting than how we had been raised. And at that point, he said, take your kids on dates every week. So that was one of the things that we decided, okay, let's take our kids on dates every week. And we started doing some really intentionally relational things with Kira and her younger sister. And then fast forward years later, Kira was really struggling with the depression. We didn't know, you know, how to help her. Like you said in the intro, we were kind of in this revolving door of care. It was just felt like we were kind of stuck, and how, you know, nothing was really healing, nothing was really helping bring her out of the depression. And so there was a time after a second hospitalization in 2024, her therapist, who had been her therapist for about 4 years at that point, who really knew her, said, I think she needs more care. And I thought, what does that look like? And so I said, what is more care? And she said, residential counseling. And I was like, you know, that just felt like, what in the world?
And I thought she was joking.
You thought she was joking?
She was not joking.
She was not joking.
She was not joking.
I felt like a bomb went off and you thought she was joking.
Yeah, I was like, okay, you're funny. Like, that was a good one.
Well, and then I said, oh, okay. And she said, there's only one place I'd recommend, and it's called Heartlight Ministries. And it's run by Mark Gregston. And I'm like, that's the only one I've ever heard of before. And even as we were raising the kids, like in high school, we'd say, hey, you can thank Mark Gregston for this, like when we treat them to something special and, whatever it would be. So anyway, so we were familiar with the ministry already through the course that we had done, through some other things, ways we'd stayed connected. And then when her therapist mentioned it, I looked around maybe a little tiny bit. But what was special about this place is it wasn't a hospital. It was literally residential counseling, and her living in a house, actually a series of houses when you were there.
Mm-hmm.
And they were built like big log cabins, and it was homey. And I remember asking when I called, I said, do you hug the residents? And they said, yeah, we love them. We love on them. And as a mom, I mean, the thought of my kid not getting a hug for several months, was just not tenable. And, and of course, we're all speaking about appropriate interactions, obviously. But, we just wanted a place where she was going to be, again, loved and seen as the person
Right.
So, yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing how that all came together for us.
Sounds pretty divine, actually.
Absolutely. Yes.
This
Absolutely.
was not, you'd already heard the name before,
Right.
and like I want to say a providence, right?
Exactly.
It
Very
wasn't just
serendipitous.
out of blue and 1,000 miles away. That would be tough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be tough.
Yep.
Were you allowed to go do parental visits or anything?
There were, yeah. And if I can, yeah. They had a schedule of, we went and we dropped her off. We were all able to go and drop her off.
Okay.
But what they do there is they allow, I think, 12 to 17-year-olds enroll in the program. But once she hit 18, she was not going to be allowed to enroll. And it was 3 months before her 17th or her 18th birthday, excuse me. And so we thought, we have a really short runway here. We have got to do something right now while she's still a minor, while we can still, as her parents, do something for her. And so I was on the phone. I was filling out all the paperwork kind of behind her back, and we were getting up at 4:30 in the morning, my husband and I, with our Bibles open. We learned how to whisper really well to each other, and just pray and asking. And within like a week, we were able to get a spot for her. So we told her, and and the look on your face was just relief. Like, oh, here's an answer. Here's an answer. So when we went down and we dropped her off, then they gave us a schedule. And this was November. We got to talk to her for only 5 minutes on Thanksgiving. So she had a great day, right?
It was actually really fun.
You had fun. So that was great.
That was a great Thanksgiving.
I'm so glad. I watched 3 movies and did like 3 puzzles. I mean, I just, I went into survival mode.
You had to stay busy. Yeah. Idle mind is a devil's play. So.
Yeah. And so, but then we got to see her at Christmas. They have parent retreats where they tell us, where they bring us in as parents. The first parent retreat, you get to have lunch. That's it. You're there for the whole weekend, but you only get to see your kid for an hour. And they actually only give us 45 minutes, those turkeys. Yeah,
they lied.
So, they gave us 45 minutes. So the joke is that first trip for the parent retreat, we went to Texas to see her for 45 minutes.
Yeah, that would be tough.
Yeah. But the whole idea for them is that you are building a relationship. You're wanting to see each other more.
Mm-hmm.
You were there. You were trying. You took the initiative and you were present
every time.
Yep.
Every single time. Yeah. So they did have those things, but they were. There was a stretch between March and June that was really long. That was the hardest one for sure. 30 minutes a week. It was all we had. No face-to-face time. So that was tough.
That's putting a lot of faith into other people to pour into her and help her do that healing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think though by then you had enough of a turnaround, or we had seen enough growth too, that she was 18, and at 18, what do they say? You can pull yourself.
Yeah.
And so she was choosing to stay every day from 18 on. And that also gave us faith because we knew
Right.
she was wanting to be better, wanting to
She
get
was
healthy.
making the conscious choice to be there for herself.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, that was
huge.
huge.
That's big adulting for you, Kira.
Thank you.
Seriously,
Mhm.
that's big
Mhm.
adulting.
Yeah. It was
Do you look at it that way?
No, I've never thought about it that way.
But you can see where I'm saying that, though, that's making big adult decisions to do that for yourself.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Yeah.
for sure.
Sounds like some great seeds have been poured into you, and you have all these people who are watering it. So how are you maintaining that growth now?
It is a lot more difficult now that I'm back home. Because when I was at my program, we had such a regimented schedule. Every minute was planned for, every minute was accounted for. Meals would be provided 3 times a day. Everything was like so scheduled and structured. And then I got home and it's like, oh wow, I have free reign on my entire day. And so, my schedule since I've gotten home it's been all around. But it's still actively making that choice. This is the hardest part. This was the hardest part when I was back home and I was super depressed. But making that choice to get up and actually do the day instead of just wasting it away.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to do a quick parallel for veterans, especially those who have gotten out, retired, or like me, I got out on a disability, and then I had life to me again. Well, my day started out at being at PT at 6 o'clock in the morning, dropping kids off at daycare at 5:30, over, for PT at 6, and my day was scheduled all the way up until like 7 p.m. Between work and kids, it was full.
Right.
When you get out, it's like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Which hat am I learning how to put on? Employee hat. Well, it took me the longest to figure out how to put the veteran hat on, especially as a woman, because guys, it's a lot easier. They get brought into that fold of being a veteran, but we women nobody told us to put our veteran hat on. In fact, I had family members told me to get rid of all of my uniforms, to almost divorce myself of that identity. Yeah. So it's been kind of a switch to like, about 10 or so years, I started learning how to put it back on, and then help other women learn how to put their veteran hat on and say, wow, I'm a veteran. I even have a documentary that I made that statement. Wow, I'm a veteran too.
Yeah.
Somebody didn't help me make that identification. So in some ways you're a veteran having those issues, but now you've got to figure out what your schedule is and maintain your own self-disciplined version of your schedule, and to know that you're producing. I think there's an innate human part of us that wants to feel like we have purpose. So that's why my show is called From Pain to Purpose.
Yeah.
That's why you're on the show, to help you figure out what your purpose is, in case your mom didn't tell you. I'm telling you, I'm people gardening with you, that now you can figure out how to help somebody else. So I don't think we're connected on Facebook, Sarah, but when I flew back from Dallas the other day, Tuesday, I was at where was it? In a restaurant. Anyways, at a restaurant at the airport, this young man sat beside me, about your age, Kira, and he struck up the conversation with me. And he was headed to Colorado Springs. He's at a house. He actually texted with me. Was it yesterday or this morning? It was yesterday. So we exchanged phone numbers. He's at a house. His dad is in prison. His mother is in a treatment facility. He's 18 years old and really has no family. So he's there at a home in, I think it's like a treatment facility, but it's a leadership program that he's in. And he was happy to know that I care. And like, of course I care. I'm a parent. My people garden grows like this. But it was just neat to see that he was attending this place because somebody saw in him this leadership thing that could help other people. Because he has only known addiction himself, right? He has used all kinds of different things, and he didn't ever get into the selling of it or anything. It was really just the use of it. A lot of it was really about escaping his situation.
Right.
So I think I'm encouraging you to find a platform that you can help. Maybe it's writing your own book. Maybe it's starting a podcast and helping other people. And this young man, I asked him to come on as a guest on my show. That if we don't share these kinds of stories, that it's and the difficulties of how we manage it, both as the person and as the parent, then I end up as having issues as a mother. When I know my kids are struggling. It's difficult because we feel like it's something guilty. We're supposed to own that, but we can only do what we can do. And I still have to take care of me and put my oxygen mask on before I can help you put your oxygen mask on.
Yeah. So what's your purpose?
That's a pretty big question.
It is a big question, but I feel like you have some good foundational stuff. Who would you say you are now versus who you might have thought because your life was pretty hopeless a year and a half ago. You were not wanting to live. It was literally life and death. And what shifted for you?
Oh, great question.
I know. I feel like I'm getting interviewed all around here.
Well,
no pressure. I think this is really just food for thought for you.
Yeah.
You don't have to answer it right now.
Yeah.
But I think God's going to help reveal it to you.
Right.
So you just got to give it to him.
Yeah. That was going to be my answer. Wherever God leads me, that's where I'll go.
Well, and that's been one of the encouraging things is seeing Kira open her Bible and ask God and seek him and look there for answers and hope beyond herself, beyond even us as her parents, beyond this life. Like, what's the big picture here?
Yeah.
And so you're right. We don't have to have all the answers today, but I know you're looking in the right place for where those things are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're looking at getting your real estate license?
Yes. I'm taking classes right now.
Well, that's good to know. I have cousins in the area that have a company.
Oh,
That's
That's
cool.
good too. It's a small world.
Yeah.
It is a small world.
Let me know.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Yeah. Connect with her on Facebook.
You might need a LinkedIn account, girl.
Yeah.
You might need your own LinkedIn network going. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's good. I can see your mom's an author. I think it's a story to tell.
Yeah.
It's not so much sounds like as necessarily a how-to guide, but when I wrote Welcome to My People Garden, I didn't necessarily have to get into the weeds about the stuff that was happening, but I gave people enough of my story and plugged it in with Bible. I used the parable of the sower. So here's the spiel, Sarah. Okay. Everybody sees your front yard, but only you see the backyard. Right? It's your personal responsibility to clean out your backyard. So all of the wait a minute vines, I call it, the briar patch, the prickly thorns, the things, you can't work on the ground until you get that cleaned out, right? But a lot of that is really the lies that people tell you and that we tell ourselves. You have to clear out all of the lies at the root. But then you've also got the rocks, and I usually keep a sample rock in my desk, but it's buried. I'm fixing to get ready a new desk this next week. But I'm going to use this little can as a rock. We have all these rocks that are buried underneath the dirt. But if we just leave those rocks, if these are our problems, if these are our trials, and it sounds like you've worked on cleaning up some of those rocks at the, treatment center.
Hours and hours.
Literally and figuratively.
But you have to be careful that another one doesn't get buried again, right? Because it's a constant tilling. That's what the farmers do. They're always tilling, and it seems like always magically there's some kind of new rock that pops up because life happens. People are going to constantly still hurt us. They wound us, but we keep carrying that rock around, and guess what? Rocks get heavy. You still have to keep that going. But if your ground is full of rocks, the seeds that people sow towards you are not going to take root. We can have lots of rain, but it doesn't get enough water for it to grow and sustain you. So I use the parable of the sower. That's what spoke to me when both of my husbands had passed away. That's what spoke to me to help me thrive. So everybody sees your front yard, but only you see your backyard. It's your responsibility to keep it cleaned out. And that gets tough sometimes. It always means that it's kind of work. It's dirty. The seasons happened, and we get busy with life, and guess what? More weeds grow in there, and you got to clean them out again. But you got to be careful who you let in that space, because that's the problem with people dumping stuff in there.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
So maybe find a Bible verse that speaks to you and see how that develops. And, it took me 10 years to write my book because they were all just a bunch of notes that I had taken in church. And then I started lining them all up together in piles. I ended up with 12 chapters.
Oh,
dang.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, there's 12 disciples, 12 tribes.
True.
Yeah, it's a good number.
Yeah.
Let God speak to you on it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Awesome.
It's not an overnight process.
No.
So before we close, we got 8 minutes, well, really about 6 before the ending video. What's one question I should have asked that I didn't ask you?
That's a good question. I've never been asked that one before.
How tough was it for you being away from your family?
It was pretty difficult. It's a big adjustment moving from a 4-person household with a little dog to living with 8 other girls all the time. So I think I got really blessed in the time that I went, though, because everybody who was in my intake house was so fantastic, and I had such a good group of people around me, and everybody was so kind and welcoming, and it just really made the experience so much easier. But I feel like if I had literally anybody else, it wouldn't have been that easy of an experience. But it was still really hard being away from my family. Yeah.
And getting to know 8 other personalities.
Yeah.
That are all your age going through the same thing, essentially.
Yeah.
Do you still maintain contact with any of them?
Yes. I talked to a few of them today. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty much all
Were
the
you
time.
feeling anxious today? I hope not.
No. Not
Okay.
not feeling anxious.
Okay.
Yeah. Kira's my extrovert. I got left home with the two introverts in the family for.
That would have been worse for her.
Yeah. It was a different battle on the home front. Yeah. I'm glad my extrovert's back. So, yeah. We're both excited to chat with you today, Eva. So,
Yeah.
Aw, thank you.
I think, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just
I was
going to
just gonna
say
say-
one thing.
Sorry, little lag there. I'm sorry. I was going to say, I'm going to send y'all a copy of my book.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Oh.
I'll have to make sure I get your address. So anyways, go back to what were you going to say, Sarah?
Just that one thing people ask me weird questions about our choice of, sending Kira or being a mom of somebody, because I think when people first find out about the depth of their child's struggle with mental health, or, anybody finds out the depth of it, the first reaction is such terror and fear. And I think what I would just want to share with people is that there is always hope. There's always a strand of hope if especially if you know about it now. You can, there will be a way, and you don't have to understand how. You don't need to know how they're going to be helped. You just can make yourself available to them, and God will open the doors for you to help.
Do you think the stigma, for this question I think is for both of you, do you think the stigma of mental health is changing, both in the teenage side and what you see as a parent?
Yeah, I'd say it's neither here nor there. There's definitely a positive way that it's like people are more accepting and more understanding with it, but then there's also the side of people self-diagnosing and blaming everything on mental health, even though it can be crippling. I feel like it's gone too far in some circumstances.
Right.
How
And I would say,
what do you mean it's gone too far? Too quick to get a diagnosis or too quick to put a label on it?
Diagnose.
Yeah, people self-diagnosing and putting the label on it when it might not necessarily be
severe depression.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's still a stigma to a certain degree in my generation of parents who feel like if only I had done XYZ, even though there's no such thing as XYZ, then my kid wouldn't feel this way. I mean, you could ask Kira, she never went through a trauma that triggered all of this.
No.
It's a mental health situation.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing for us to feel guilty about. Instead, we need to get past any shame that might come in and just deal with the problem. And one really helpful thing that we always have said is you're not the problem is the problem, and we're going to fight that problem together and find the solution together.
Oh, I love that. The problem is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, we have to close. Y'all have been fantastic guests. Thank you so much for sharing and supporting us as veterans, right? I think that we have not necessarily always been equipped from the veteran side of things to deal with some of these topics, though we're quick to see that, it's the veteran who may have issues, but we haven't been wired to figure out how do we help our kids on things.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes we just don't know what we don't know. And
Exactly.
It's important to have these kinds of discussions. So thank you so much, both of you, for coming on and sharing. So I look forward to a continued relationship with you, and y'all have a great day in Colorado.
All right.
So
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Have coming up on the show next Saturday is my good friend George Alexander. We went scuba diving a few years ago. Met him. He was one of the dive buddies out there. Stephanie Ford is one of my new Christian friends, and she's also a former military spouse, and she's going to be on February 14th. Elaine Davidson, coming up on February 21st, is another friend of mine. She supports the veteran community. She's not a veteran, but she has some domestic violence story to tell, and I think it's worthwhile for all of us to have some of these tough conversations, but important nonetheless. And looking for upcoming guests, February 28th and March 7th on. So thank you both ladies for joining us. Everybody have a great day. Thank you for giving veterans a voice on Military Broadcast Radio. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.